Okay, so picture this. You're standing on the edge of a huge valley. The sun is setting, and you're looking down at this gorgeous kingdom. For just 1 second, you feel like you're on top of the world. And that's exactly where we meet our hero, a 16-year-old kid named Chip. But even though he's having this amazing moment, his story actually started at the very, very bottom.
I mean, what a feeling, right? Especially for a 16-year-old. But for Chip, that feeling is a million miles away from where he came from. See, he wasn't born a king or a noble, or even just a regular kid with a family. He was born an outcast.
And that's the big question we're really digging into today. We're going to trace this kid's journey, from being this miserable orphan to standing on that cliff during his manhood quest. How in the world does a so-called cursed child become a hero?
So Chip's story begins in what you might call his ordinary world, but trust me, his version of ordinary was anything but. He was left at the castle gates as a baby, and right away, everyone labeled him cursed. Why? Simply because he was born with red eyes. King Barton literally ordered him to be fed to the wolves. The only reason he survived is because the queen stepped in and said, "No, let him work in the kitchens instead." Some mercy, huh?
So his childhood was the story of two extremes. For the first 8 years, he actually had some love from a woman named Auntie Claire. She's the one who gave him his name. But then he was handed over to Miss Stern, this awful kitchen mistress who didn't even see him as a person. She just called him It. And for 2 years, she basically starved and tormented him.
By the time he was 10, Chip was just this gaunt, weak, and totally exhausted kid. He'd reached his limit. One day, after another horrible day of work, he accidentally dropped a mop, and Miss Stern just whacked him right across the face. It was the first real thing he'd felt in ages, and it uncorked years and years of rage he'd been bottling up.
In this is where everything changes. As he gets to his feet, Miss Stern claims his eyes flared bright red. She runs off screaming that he's a demon. And just like that, he's dragged in front of the king, who sentences him to 50 lashes and banishment. For a 10-year-old boy, that's basically a death sentence.
So right when it looks like it's all over for Chip, two legendary figures step out of the shadows. This is that classic moment in a hero's story, the meeting the mentor part. Only Chip, well, he gets two for the price of one. On one side, you've got Xander, the Grand Wizard, who looks at Chip and sees something nobody else does. And on the other, there's his protector, Garth Stone, who is hands down the greatest weapons master in the entire kingdom. Xander steps in and somehow convinces the king to give him the boy for training instead of throwing him out. And this is the moment Chip's life takes a hard right turn.
But he's not out of the woods yet, not even close. All those years of abuse, they catch up to him, and he gets sick, like deathly ill. He's so broken that he starts to give up. He even tells the wizard, "It's all right, just let me go." His will to live was just gone.
Xander's trying to use magic to save him, but Chip is actually fighting it. He's ready to die. But right as he feels that final cold touch of death, something inside him flips. He sees all the life he still wants to live, and he makes himself a promise. He will never, ever give up again. He literally turns, stares death in the face, and with his eyes blazing red, he says one word, "No." And death actually backs off. So after surviving that, his real training can finally begin. Garth Stone, the weapons master, takes over. And his job is to rebuild this kid, not just his body, but his mind. And he does it with a few simple, really powerful ideas. This is lesson number 1. Garth starts pushing Chip physically, harder than he's ever been pushed. Every single muscle is on fire, but the point is to force Chip to face his fear of pain, fear of failure, and just keep going right through it. And here's the follow-up. Through all that pain and discomfort, Chip learns to find something Garth calls the calm. It's this mental state where you just push aside all the noise, all the emotion, especially fear, and let your training kick in. He basically learns how to turn his pain into pure focus. And finally, Garth spars with him until Chip literally can't even lift his sword anymore and just collapses. Chip thinks he's failed, but Garth tells him, "I needed to see your limits. Now you know them too. And you need to understand limits are not real." That lesson, combined with the promise he made on his deathbed, becomes everything to him. All right, so let's fast forward 6 years. Chip is now 16. He's not that broken little kid anymore. He's a disciplined young warrior. And now it's time. It's time for him to face the biggest trial of his life.
So the manhood quest is a really big deal in this kingdom. Every 16-year-old boy has to make this solo trip out to a watchtower at the Pass of Death. Once they get there, they swear an oath to protect humanity from, well, whatever is on the other side of this ancient, mysterious barrier. For 3,000 years, it's been a perfectly safe, symbolic trip. But things are about to be very different for Chip.
Yeah, pretty quickly, Chip realizes the world is way more dangerous than he was told. First, this gigantic fanged bear starts hunting him. He barely gets away, just in time to see this horrifying clawed creature, a demon, show up and just tear the bear to pieces. And then, as if that's not crazy enough, a colossal mountain wolf appears and kills the demon without even breaking a sweat. Chip just has to stand there and watch this brutal food chain in action.
So he's shaken, but he's alive. And he finally makes it to his destination, the watchtower at the Pass of Death. This is supposed to be the moment of triumph, right? The end of the quest. Instead, this is where his real test begins.
He gets there at sunset and is just dead silent. The door to the soldier's cabin is open, the shed door is hanging by one hinge. You just know something is very, very wrong. He climbs the tower expecting to find the sentries, but what he finds instead is a nightmare.
The watchtower is a slaughterhouse. The entire room is just filled with the dismembered bodies of the guards. It's an absolute massacre. Whatever did this is long gone, but the proof of what they can do is everywhere.
In the cabin below, he finds one survivor, an old soldier named Arpad who is barely hanging on. And with his last few breaths, he gives Chip a terrifying warning. A whole pack of demons broke through the barrier. They're here. And his last request is for Chip to light the signal fire and warn the kingdom.
And just like that, Chip's quest isn't about him anymore. It's about saving everybody. He sprints for the giant signal fire just as a horde of demons bursts out of a nearby shed. He knows he's not going to make it, so in one last desperate move, he hurls his torch. A gust of wind blows it out, but then, a second later, the chemically treated wood catches, and the whole thing just erupts into a massive bonfire. Mission accomplished. Now, he just has to survive.
The odds are just impossible. It is one 16-year-old boy with a sword facing down more than a dozen ravenous demons, and they're all lit by the very fire that's signaling their arrival, and probably his death.
So, it all comes down to this, doesn't it? Here's a kid who was called a demon his entire life, and now he's about to die fighting actual demons to save the people who hated him. Is this just the tragic end of an orphan's lonely quest? Or is this the exact moment the boy dies, and the hero is finally born?